Welcome to the very first Theories of Nothing conference. It's really good to have you all here, and I'm excited to present what this community is about, what Theories of Nothing is about, which is what I want us to discuss today. Um, to give a bit of a context here, we all sort of met through another community called Theories of Everything, and that's partly one of the reasons I chose the name Theories of Nothing, is to have a bit of a dualistic counterpart. And we're not affiliated with Theories of Everything. It's their own community, their own thing. But being as we all met within that community, it's a lot of the same people. And at the same time, the goal of this channel or of this community is to come together and have a platform where anyone who has a theory to offer that is credible, and well laid out, so that we can sort of look into that and promote it and just invite people who are nobodies as well, as part of like the branding or like the identity of this sort of community. It's a bunch of nobodies, but that have everything to offer in terms of their knowledge. And so who knows? Maybe the potential of the future would be to have people who have something to contribute to, say, mathematics or philosophy, science, and they could maybe meet their academic peers. So literally unifying physics and metaphysics, which is something we discussed in the TOE conference. So yeah, there it is. And in essence, what I'd like us to do is debate a little bit. What do you guys think void is? So we'll define void and nothingness. And so ultimately we're doing this debate over the ontology of void. Now I want us to do many debates on this, right? But I think it's a great way to start this conference is to discuss the ontology of void. So is nothingness possible? Does it exist in some way? And I think that would be a great way to start this conference. But let's see where things go as well. We can discuss whatever we want as well. I want us to be free. So, insofar as I know, Brandon, Lucy, and I don't know about you, Ryan and Jason. Like, what are your positions when it comes to that? Now, I'm in the camp that nothingness exists. Hence why I've named this community Theories of Nothing. It exists in some capacity. Insofar as where Lucy and Brandon stands, it's no, nothingness doesn't exist by definition. Alex, I believe you're in my camp. So what about you, Ryan and Jason? What do you guys think?
I think it's very reasonable to say that nothingness doesn't exist, and I'm inclined to agree with that. But I sort of want to say, what if nothingness is everything? Sort of just to counter it a little bit. It would be interesting to consider that nothing is everything.
Yeah, well, that's literally what I say in the Pace One video that I did. That why is there something rather than nothing? Because nothing is everything, in a way. What about you, Jason?
I say define. It depends how you define nothing.
Mm-hmm. Of
Like, is
course.
it just the absence of a thing? Like, I have no pencils. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you can exist with 0 pencils, but is it possible to exist with nothing of anything? I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Okay.
I
So
think
you
by
would be
definition you can't have it.
interesting. So I was just thinking maybe before we launch into it, we should maybe present ourselves a little bit more, like have some background. So anyone watching this would be like, okay, well, who are these people, right? And that's the whole point. We're nobodies for now, but let's see who we are. So Alex, would you begin for us, please?
Yeah, sure. Who am I? I'm a game developer and psychotherapist from Australia. Damn, it's a big question. Yeah, where shall I start? Shall I just?
Well, can you just tell us a little bit about how you got into this community and where you're sort of working from? Because I think you said you're interested in ontological mathematics, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
maybe discuss that.
Yeah. Okay. So I was kind of born and raised in sort of alternative occult thinking, and but also very vague and unspecific communications of that occult thinking. So I became like super interested in critical thinking and semantics, and became a bit of a materialist for a while, and then discovered like Jung and more kind of psychotherapeutic interests emerged, and then started traveling the world, being interested in comparative religion, and getting involved in like Hinduism and Buddhism, and deeper into the occult as well. And through that, I think I started being interested in like what is reality, what's going on in ontology and metaphysics. And then I discovered integral theory, and through that, Bernardo Kastrup, and then the Toe Channel, and then you and this, and here I am.
All
There's
right.
a very abridged version.
That's good. I appreciate it. Yeah. Brandon, where are you from? What's your story?
Well, I am from, well, currently live in the United States, in Alabama, Birmingham to be exact. And I found myself into this community when I was in the midst of my of figuring out where exactly I stand in this world, and I figured that out through a lot of logical discernment and a lot of art making, and I managed to get some degree of feedback in the communities I was in, with the theory of everything community being one of them. And eventually I met James. We started chatting, and sure enough, it led to this. And here we are now.
Yeah, that's speaking of which, that's actually why I started the channel, because you were having a discussion with Roy. I think, was it Roy? Yeah, and at the end of on his platform, I guess, and at the end of that discussion, you guys mentioned that I could maybe do this kind of thing. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, I could, and I really should, because I think like I want us to have more of a presence and a platform to discuss our own theories, which is, you know, what's great about the theories of everything is that he's really bringing and popularizing theories in general and ideas, and that's great. But for those who are well known, who are well established, that have taken many years, and I think there is a lot of value in people that are field jumping and they're not quite as well known, and that might have something to contribute. So ultimately, I'd like to unify those two worlds eventually. That would be really cool. So anyway, thanks, Brandon. You know, shout out for that, because that motivation kind of helped me kickstart this thing. Jason, can you tell us about where you're from? I think I met you through the Tyler Goldstein's community.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah.
It's from his theory of everyone, sentient singularity theory, Discord. Yeah, no, I've just always been interested in metaphysics and the search for truth, and I've had intuitions about things like we're inside of a mind or things like that. That as I'm reading other authors and other metaphysicists, I'm finding out they're also thinking that that's the same thing. And Alexander mentioned Bernardo Kastrup. I've read a whole bunch of his stuff. I absolutely love his work. It's very intuitive. And then, yeah, other than that, mainly Tyler Goldstein, the other YouTuber I watch.
Cool. All right. And Lucy? Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's what's so cool about the you did a sort of questionnaire once, and I that's how we did our first interview together. I decided to ask you about the questions and ask you to answer your own questions as well in that video, and that was really great. And also in the last TOE conference, you mentioned something about politics and that people would be able to apply a theory at will in some way, or some kind of radical tolerance or something like that. I found that interesting. And eventually, I'd like to discuss more practical things because when we're talking about theories of everything and theories of nothing, metaphysics, that sort of thing, it's the most abstract thing. So eventually, we kind of need to take people along, and that's what this channel is going to be about a little bit. People who have really well-defined theories. At some point, I'd like to do a playlist where we actually dive into their theory and try to explain from the most abstract to the most concrete. Like, okay, now what does that mean for society? How do you apply that politically and socioeconomically and in the individual life? Like, how does an individual apply it? So, we want to render the abstract concrete a little bit there as well, so that there's some utility. So yeah, we'll discuss that more in the future. And finally, Ryan, let's hear about you, man. Where are you from? What are you all about?
I'm from I'm from Roseburg, Oregon, and I consider myself primarily to be a writer. I wasn't originally interested in theories of everything. I just really love to write. But I noticed over time my writing started getting more and more abstract. I stopped talking basically about, I used to love slice of life, just the mundane little moments. I would jot them down, the things that people really didn't pay attention to that stuck out to me. And over time, I've sort of immersed myself in the community. And like Lucy said, I just really enjoyed hearing everybody's crazy ideas. And it felt like I found a group of misfits that basically I resonated with. And that's pretty much it.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I think that resonates with me too. It's like we're the misfits of the misfits, maybe, because I don't know. It's cool to see people come together and completely disagree, and yet still love to talk to each other. And so we are misfits insofar as the stuff we discuss is already quite rare. There's not too many people who are into this kind of stuff. And then for us to not really be able to create any kind of ideological camps either, because we're all our own individuals with our own ideas, but we still stick together. That's why I say that we're misfits of misfits, and it's a good thing to see because ultimately the way I see it is that is unification. That is what unity looks like, right? We can come together and completely disagree and completely have different backgrounds, but we still yet understand or share some kind of reality and experience together, right? So, um, speaking of that, the question I have for some of you is like, where would you want this community to go? Because I don't. I was thinking about this. Like, I don't know if I want to be the poster child of this because the whole point is that it's a community. Uh, but at the same time, when you don't have some kind of leadership or executive decision maker, then it loses its integrity, and then there is no community. So, what do you guys think? Like, how should this kind of roll out? Because I'm willing to be more open minded as to how this works. But yeah, what are your initial reactions there?
I quite like something Lucy said on her video she shared last night. I think she was commenting on how she felt like her mind has been changed, but she was curious about whether other people's on the channel's minds were going to be changed, and whether we were just sort of a bunch of people with our own kind of dogmatic views bumping into each other and not really getting anywhere, or whether we're going to be a community of co-creators and create something new. So that's kind of what I would like to see from the community is, how does, even though we all do have our own probably dogmatic and biased views in some different ways, like how can we grow together and build something new? And maybe get closer to the truth that way.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe like the fact that we are so atomized, maybe from looking at things from a very specific perspective, that if we don't change our perspectives, but we can show how that show how that we are still compatible, that it wouldn't matter if people change their minds. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the way I see it. Hmm. Yeah. Well, okay. So that leads me to really discussing what I want to discuss here about the metaphysics and nothingness and all that. I think we all agree. We all have one assumption that we all agree on, which is that there is one fundamental. I mean, that's the definition of fundamental, right? I mean, it's one substance or idea or thing or truth. So if we all assume that, we all seem that to assume that there is one thing, whatever that thing is, then really there is nothing else to discuss in the sense that we all agree, right? So I don't necessarily think that agreement is what we're looking for here. I think
that's only until the process ontologists come into the group and discard substance.
yeah. Okay. Well, can you unpack that? What do you mean by that?
Process ontology is kind of like moving away from the substance, the people who claim substance as fundamental, and looking at process as fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
And like I still feel like I've had a chat with Matthew Siegel, who is really big on the Alfred North Whitehead's process ontology stuff, and it sounded like that you could technically fit that idea as a substance, like if the substance was process. But yeah, I think that you might get people coming in and sort of disagreeing that there's one fundamental thing that we can define, and talk more about the process of all the things working together in relationships. But again, I think that it's probably both and, not either or, but who knows?
Because that's the thing. Because when we're talking about substance, we're already thinking physics, right? But that's what I'm trying to say is like, no. I'm talking about so fundamental that it's not about it's not about something that can fractionate in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like you can say reality. So the reality of things that come together, and there isn't one fundamental thing. That in itself is one thing. It is one reality. So it depends on what we're talking about. So you're right. You know, when it comes to substance, that starts to imply something physical, like matter. So I think that's the whole debate here. That's why I want to create a channel that's about nothingness, because I'm on the line there. I'm when I say metaphysics, we're talking about beyond physics. We're not talking about ontology in a way. We're talking about what we are and we aren't, right? Like we can discuss physics all we want, but that's not really, to me, what I think everyone is really after. I think everyone is after an idea that encompasses reality in a way that, like Lucy had mentioned once, that everyone can understand. You know what I mean? Even a child, and can apply in their life. Um, so yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely. What I mean though is in the search for truth, right? I think if everyone, even someone who wants to reconcile quantum mechanics and classical physics, they would be like, okay, well, that doesn't necessarily let you know where that came from, right? Like that's not, there's always going to be an infinite regress, and so we want to understand truth, not necessarily find it. But I know what you mean. Obviously, it's a generalization, but I think it seems that people are always, in general, looking for something absolute, insecure. Is that something you disagree with, or? Yeah, but that disagreement to me isn't. I think that is the only one that's okay to have, because the why, like why reality is, to me is it's it's almost arbitrary. You can come up with your own why, uh, and ultimately, can we really answer the other five questions, right? The what, when, who, where, all that stuff. Can we agree on all of that? And then the why, well, it seems to me to be a purely subjective thing. Um, but it depends on what level you're talking about. Like me personally, my why, I consider it to be the most logical, but there's the most emotional, there's the most useful, right? Like why reality? I try to look for the most logical reason, and then that's going to be a teleology for sure. But I don't want to get into that quite yet, because I don't want to plug my philosophy and start talking about it. But I do at some point on this channel. But really, my question is to you guys who think that by definition nothing doesn't exist. Okay, so does that mean then that language is fundamental to you, because you say that it's by definition? Hey, there's Roy, I believe, because Callie the destroyer. But Roy, all we see is blurred.
Oh,
Hey,
hello. Hey,
you're blurred. We don't see
I'm
you.
blurred.
Yeah.
I'm on the other camera. Let's see if I can fix that.
Mhm. Well, while you do that, I was just laying out my. You got here just in time for the crux of the conversation. I'm curious about people who. There you go. It's starting to work out.
There, that's just
Yeah. So
the laptop camera. Okay, go
Jason,
ahead.
Ryan, Jason, Lucy, Brandon. I think I've heard all four of you say in the past at some point that that nothingness doesn't exist by definition. So when you say that with language, that tells me that language is fundamental to you. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, I definitely think that language is fundamental. If you think about a piece of music and the emotion that conveys, why does it convey that emotion? Or a phrase that you say, and then that phrase conveys a meaning. That meaning has emotion to you. If I give you a Russian dictionary and I tell you to learn Russian, you can't, because the words in the Russian dictionary are defined by other Russian words in the same dictionary. Something outside of it would have to define it. So I think reality must have started out as a language, or started out with some amount of information. And another word for information slash language or meaning would be logos, right? So that's I think that would be the word in John 1 in the beginning was the word. And so, yeah, I do believe that language would have to be fundamental to reality in order to give everything meaning. And then once you have a little bit of language, then growth is intrinsic, and you can grow consciousness, information, and that would be one of the reasons for existing, in order to expand knowledge and information.
Okay, great. So that's a great way to lay it out. My question, my follow-up question then would be, if language is fundamental and it creates all of reality, then when you say void, nothingness, doesn't it then exist in some capacity?
What would your logical jump be there? Because I don't see how that would follow.
The logic is, if what creates, hey memes, good to see you.
Hey guys, what's going on? I
We're
apologize for being late. If there's yada yada 45th constant universe, I'll be late.
See,
all
it
good.
doesn't matter how late someone else is. He always has to be the later person. He's always trying to grab the freaking spotlight. This guy.
I mean, that's an accurate statement.
Yeah.
I'm reporting currently out from the open ocean, as we can see from the background.
Yeah, it's different. Than
Yeah,
what
that's
you
real
normally
for
have.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know how to upload my thingy and the Jitsi stuff.
all good.
How are we all doing?
So good. We're just in the thick of it. We're actually discussing now like the ontology of void. So Jason was just telling me like, what's the logical leap to say that if language? Because here's what I'm basically forcing the it doesn't exist camp into a bit of a dilemma, which is, well, if you say that language is fundamental and out of it emerges everything, then when you use language to describe void and nothingness, then you are then bringing it into existence. So it does exist in some capacity. Now, to me, I don't know what how you say I'm making any logical leaps. It just follows.
So are you
know,
saying because it exists conceptually, it must exist?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, because conceptually, your mother could be an elephant, but she's not.
But she is as a concept. So that's
But
what I'm
the
trying to say.
idea, the thought that your mother is an elephant exists because you had it.
Yeah.
I disagree that my mother could conceptually be an elephant because the concept of an elephant differs radically from who my mother actually is and
But
the
the
concept of who she is.
concept, like someone had the idea, right? The thought that your mom is an elephant. So therefore, that thought existed at that time.
As a resident dirty furry, I must put out there that some
So
people
you can imagine that my mother's an elephant, but can you imagine nothingness?
So you can intuit in nothingness, though. There's plenty of things that are a priori. Like we accept zero, we accept infinity, we accept that we exist, self-awareness, a priori. And the definition of a priori is you do not need any prior experience, so it's non-empirical, to know that something is true. So if we accept all these other a priori truths, why don't we do it with nothingness, which is something that we can't ever escape? Mathematicians have to use zero, they have to use infinity. So to me, it's very curious why we just sweep it under the rug with the linguistic thing and say, well, by definition, it doesn't exist. Right? And
Mm.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, but here, when you say pointer, to me, you're already assuming the existential construct. You're saying it's a pointer within existence. So to me, that's not nothingness. That's relativism. So I agree with you that there are pointers, that there is a necessity for a point upon which you can create contrast so that you know what is what. But when I'm talking about existence itself, the issue is you will never be able to go outside of existence to understand existence, right? It's the ruler problem. And so, but if you do accept that consciousness is fundamental or that it's possible for humans to have any a priori knowledge, then to me it is perhaps the most a priori knowledge possible because by definition, you do not need prior experience to know. It's pure logic or pure truth. And nothingness literally is nothing that you can experience. So it is the most perfect a priori truth to me. And so to me, the idea that it's a pointer, well, yeah, the zero versus infinity within the existential construct, that's another thing entirely. That is within existence. It has nothing to do with void. To me, void is. Sorry,
yeah, that would put the absence of existence more fundamental than existence itself.
Yes, absolutely. Well, no, not necessarily. So here's the thing.
You can't
That's why
have
I
the
say it's
absence of
paradoxical.
existence.
To me, there is no differentiation on the highest level of truth. So I don't know if you guys know about the pleroma. I know Alex does. Carl Jung wrote a Gnostic text. It's like 12 pages long, brilliant, in which he discusses the pleroma. Now, this is something that goes back thousands of years. The ancient Greeks had this concept. They knew that on the highest level of abstraction or of reality or truth or whatever, there is no differentiation between physics and metaphysics.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, my phone is at 1% and it's about to die. I would really love to carry on this conversation. That's why I've been so anxious. But if nothingness doesn't exist, does that mean that there's no representation or that it's unrepresentable? And if there's no representation of nothingness, then does that mean that its representation validates its internal type or not?
I think so, because like you said, even if you accept, and if language does create truth, that doesn't mean, like, what I'm saying doesn't negate that. It doesn't say that that's not actual.
How can you say that language creates truth?
I'm not saying that. I'm
It
saying
describes it.
It describes truth, sure, but what is it describing is the question. And if you say the physical world, well, language isn't fundamental. It's a descriptor. That would be like what Lucy says. It's a pointer. So you have to choose one thing, guys. Like, it's got to be one or the other. That I do agree. The law of the excluded middle applies to that.
That almost sounds like a binary choice there, James.
Right?
No, sorry to cut you off. No, it sounds almost like a binary choice, if you would there. Now,
It
could
is.
one say that the nothingness would be the empty set, so to speak?
No, all I'm saying is when it comes to language, you can either say it is fundamental, out of which everything emerges, or that it is a pointer that describes, or you can say it's both. And if you say
Nothingness is even less than the empty set. It's a complete bona fide Ur element, basically, in set theory. It's not even a set. You would call it like a class.
Ooh, category theory strikes again. Now, could
Super
one
compact or subcompact.
sorry to cut you off, but could could nothingness be described, so to speak, as everything that is not within the bounds of our existence or reality?
See, I'm sorry, man.
I think it's further.
I can't listen anymore, because I'm glad you brought up duality, because the entire model of thing and nothing is incorrect. So we can talk about this all day, and we will, and it has for centuries and centuries and centuries, using this thing nothing model, but it's incorrect. So every single result that will come from this thing nothing dualistic model will be incorrect.
No, I
There's
agree.
no way to conclude this.
We have to look for something even purer than existence.
You have to use my model of the triune system. It's a triune system, and James knows this.
Nothingness is not even comparable with existence, and it's also not comparable, if it did exist, with the boundaries of any space, whether or not that space is ours.
There's just no such thing as nothing.
Here's the thing. It is paradoxical. That is the absolute truth. On the highest level, it doesn't matter what we say, right? Whether we say
need more category
exist, because that's what I'm trying to say is, like, we necessarily are dualistic beings. We have to create differentiation. You cannot say that, for example, like, by saying non-existence doesn't exist, right? You are bringing it into existence. But does that mean you have proof for it physically? No. Or you have proof for it ontologically? No. But at the end of the day, that's the whole point. We do not have access to the entirety of truth unless we stop, like Roy says, and you just sit in pure meditation. So if you want to achieve that monad or the monistic understanding of undifferentiated truth, you necessarily have to include void or nothing.
I think it's
because then so it's both. You say void exists, but it is also everything. It is also all of existence. Therefore, you have that triunistic, or like the final thing, which is the third. That's why two things always point to the one thing. You have existence, you have non-existence, and then you have the fact that it's both, and it doesn't matter. The differentiation is where you go wrong. So that's why I'm saying, if you want to understand or conceptualize reality in its most complete way, why would you take one corner out of a triangle out, right? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Wouldn't it be?
We need to do it in mathematics and physics. So we do it with everywhere else. Why don't we do it with our language?
Wouldn't it always be the void plus the person imagining the void, the one who's observing the void?
Wouldn't matter, because it's all the same thing. There's no differentiation between person and void, person and thing. Like, this is what I'm saying. Let's not discount dualism. Let's actually try to understand what all of our religions have been pointing to. It says, yes, you can focus on one side or the other, but ultimately it's the third aspect, which is that they are both one and the same.
Void is singularity. Void is not nothing. Void is actually one. Void is everything as one thing. So there's no way to describe a singularity. So there's no way to describe nothing as well, right? There's no way to describe singularity. The laws of physics break down.
But you're saying singularity. You might not be able to describe, but you can. There's a starter point. There's a platform. You have a word for it. Now, the word you might not be able to define, because you'll define it forever, infinite regress. But we have a word for that as well, infinite, right? So to me, it's like, let's accept the language, let's use the duality, and then
singularity isn't infinite. Only trying to describe singularity is infinite.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. And you're saying that that's infinite. So we can fall into infinite regress of infinite regress forever. And that's why, my equation is all about infinity limited, right? Like, let's not. But
You get
anyway,
to infinite regress until you get to the singularity. And then
well,
you
there
just
is
have
no
to give
until
up.
you get to the
And
singularity.
then you
it
have to
goes on
sit in
forever.
meditation and just give up on thought.
Yeah,
Really.
go ahead.
So did we just like come across like the meta mental measurement problem here right now? Like, I don't know, from what I'm hearing, it sounds a little bit like turtles all the way down. It
You
sounds
can't
like,
have
well, you can't talk about it because as soon as you talk about it, you acknowledge it, you turn nothingness into an existence. So that seems like a paradox right there. So
If you're comparing two things to each other, there will always be turtles all the way. And that's what science does. It compares two things to each other, so there's turtles all the way.
well,
That's
one and
why
one
you
makes
need a
two, and
triune
two and one
system.
makes three.
You need a triune system where the two things are relating directly in parallel to the third thing, and the third thing is reality, and the third thing can't be described. There you go.
Yeah, it can't be described, but in order to access it, you need duality. You just said
No,
so.
in order to access it, you need to get past the thought free. You need to get past thought.
Sure, but if you're going to describe it at all, that's what happens, right? That's
What
why
are we
science-
trying
Finally
to
give up. You can't finally describe it. You have to finally figure out what science has done is that they can't describe it, but they keep going on anyway.
What are we trying to describe?
Hey, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Reality, I guess. The void.
Oh,
Yeah, Alexander seems like his
Yeah.
turtleneck's all the way down.
Yeah. Did anyone watch the Pace One winner on the surreal numbers? I felt like that was really
dude,
good.
my favorite video of the contest.
Yeah,
They
it
did a
was so
great job.
beautiful and amazing.
I like that one about consciousness. Go on.
So I felt like that was a really good representation of void or nothing and infinite and everything, because it has the beginning, like the very start is null, and then it requires the two
The two players, because it's formed
two
in John
players.
Conway's concept of games, left player, right player. It's like,
yeah,
you choose
which
from a
is
0,
relative.
all right, 1, and then you go for birthdays from there. I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah, so that to me that kind of represents the nothing and the everything. It's kind of like relativity is in everything and is kind of dimensional, and then the nothing is dimensionless, and it's kind of the origin point of all that.
Groovy.
Yeah, so I think that, I mean,
Are they
this is
predetermined or are they
where I
emergent?
slightly
All right.
differentiate from absolute nothing, is that nothing is actually it does have a kind of engine for determining existence, but it's not non-existence. It's like the balance of all of existence, or the potential of all of existence.
So you
Yeah,
think of
potential.
nothing kind of as
Damn,
like
you
a
said the magic word, potential.
Yeah, but then potential is like, what is that? Is that physics? Is that existence? Is that non? What is that? What is potential?
I would
Right?
like
Like, all these
Brandon's
different-
comments.
Point, you just have to go, that's what it is, and then sit in meditation. Like at
Yeah,
some
but you
point,
could
you
do
have to
that-
go, I'm
it-
going to pick this metaphor, and
Yeah.
that's it.
So then it's arbitrary, right? So people who say it's
Well,
all
sure.
existence. That's why, to me, I don't disagree with you guys. You're all right. Like, to me, the disagreement really comes down to just semantic preference. To me, if you're going to negate nothingness, you're also negating existence in a way, because, like I said, we are beings of differentiation. We require duality. That's how we function. And if you just say, no, there's just existence, and then you reduce everything, and that's why we call it material reductionism. So to me, metaphysics, when you say meta, right, it's Greek for beyond. Beyond what? Beyond the physical world. So to me, it depends on how you define existence, right? We have to go back to that. That's the bread and butter of philosophy. What do we mean when we're talking about existence? Because there's plenty of, there's an astronomer, George Ellis, for example, who has this concept of possibility spaces, and it's supraphysical. And I spoke to Robert Lawrence Kuhn. I was lucky enough to correspond with him once or twice, and he sent me his paper on the 9 levels of nothingness. There's an infinite regress there. We'll always create a new sort of existential construct. Now, is information existential? Well, yes, by definition. So that's why I think a lot of you guys reduce it to language. You say, well, language is fundamental because we have concepts like in information, but then we fall into infinite regress, and at the end of the day, there's a paradox. And that's why I just cut to the chase. I say, like, forget language, forget math, forget physics, forget everything. Go with the a priori knowledge that you have, and that a priori sense that you have requires a duality, because that's how you function. It's an experience that you have in your head, right? Like, and how does this experience emerge? Well, it emerges out of two things that are they're contradictory, and that contradiction is an antinomy, right? Which is that something emerges only next to its negation. But ultimately, the reason that it's paradoxical to us is because we think that way. But the truth is, fundamental reality, there is no two things. So to us, the most clean, logical way to access truth, if we're going to start using language to describe, as Jason says, then we have to describe it through a priori experience in consciousness, either through meditation, where it's literally just the perfection. But if you're going to start speaking about, if you're going to discuss theories of everything or nothing, then you can't get any more clean than that, right? It's a paradox. It doesn't really matter whether nothingness is everything, everything is nothingness. If we all agree that there is a fundamental truth, which is, like I said, what I think we are all striving for. We all seem to share that one underlying assumption that there is one fundamental truth or reality out of which everything emerges. Then how can we describe it is really the only discussion that we're having here. How can we describe it properly and cleanly and without any kind of bias or subjectivity or whatever? And that's why.
So in order to have that cleanness that you're talking about, if you're going to talk about something, you have to talk about it in duality, like you say. But those two aspects that you're comparing and talking about, they have to be very precise and understood, and not ambiguous at all.
No,
right? Otherwise, we're just spinning in circles. We're spending half the
Exactly.
time about semantics.
And that's
Right?
why
I
it's
think
not
we can do
just
that with
Body
mathematics.
mind.
that's why
Mind.
it's not
is
just
two things.
duality. That's why you and I fit together so well, because you need to use duality, but duality for what? To get to the triune.
Yeah, so I agree that in order to talk about it, to form the finger pointing to the moon, we need a very definite, it needs to be very precise where it's pointing. And that's why we need to agree upon, like, what are the parameters? What are the dualistic measurements that we're using?
Existence and non-existence.
Yin yang.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Existence and void. You can't escape it. That is the parameters. If you take out void, then you don't have the two hands to point to the third thing.
No, but what I'm saying is that model, that dualistic model, if it is a finger, then you have to get.
It's two fingers.
It's incorrect.
It's two fingers. You can't have a triangle without its base, and its base is formed of two corners. You need two fingers to point to the truth.
Where's the third finger coming from? But no, my big thing now we're talking like true duality. Sorry to cut you off, but we're talking about like duality for describing things or contrast, because
duality. Like contrast again is blurry, right?
It's magnitudes.
You need
contrast is the opposite of blurry.
We need category theory, dualizable categories.
No,
people are working on that.
People are working on it.
Yeah. Because most of these discussions just end up being about semantics. Half of it is just semantics, and then it gets nowhere because we're just having a chat. Oh, well, that's how you
scalability.
Talk about the weather.
Brandon,
I would not disparage semantics, though, because it can be a very interesting field if that's what you're actually intending to go for. But
like hamster wheels, I guess.
Do you agree that before you speak, there is a reality? No. Okay. So you don't exist until you have a symbol that pops into your head or language. Yeah. Okay, but like I said, then if you reduce everything to language, which now you're Well, it's a tie between everything: physics, language, math. That's what. Okay, so guys, you know what the Unity diamond is all about? I didn't explain it to you guys yet, but if you go on the website, that's the only Easter egg I'll reveal. Because on the website, I put some Easter eggs. If you click around, you'll find stuff. Um, anyway, if you click on the diamond, you'll see an explanation of what the diamond is about. So the diamond is, you have 4 points to it, of course, right? At the top, you have that which can't be described. So before language, right? 0, the nothingness, the potential, whatever. We give it a name, but it's arbitrary. You can say language, you can say whatever. But ultimately, like you said, we got to use language to talk about it. So that is on one side. Well, it's on the bottom. So MT, you'll see the MT at the end of this episode as well. I'll put it, that's like my outro, which stands for monoaletheia. It's Greek for single truth or absolute truth. That is language. It's a representative. We use language to try to access truth. But then we also have mathematics, which is the 0, 1 on the left. So mathematics is a portal or a descriptor of truth. And then on the right, you have infinity, which is all the other numbers that correspond to the physical objects in the world. So that's physics. So we have math, physics, language, and that which it all tries to describe, or the states, if you will. So I'm trying through this community is for us to all align these things. Like you said, Lucy, they are equal. There is a tie. To me, they're all unified. There is one. Yeah. No. Yeah. That's yeah. No, but like
You
you
can't
said,
have you can't have a word for every number. That's impossible.
if Lucy,
What
you said
English
there's,
word for
you said it's a
number
tie.
that has
Now
a
you're
10
saying it's not a
billion
tie.
number?
3 tree.
Lucy, you said that language and mathematics is a tie. Then now you're saying that language is more fundamental. So which is it? No, I'm not. I'm unifying them. That's the whole point.
No.
That's why the unity
Mathematics
diamond.
is a
Lucy,
language, though.
he has
Right.
infinity and then minus infinity to balance out, and then filling in everything in the center per se. I'm curious what Brandon thinks.
Yeah, Brendan is too quiet.
Well, when it comes to the concept of nothing, I would say that it is first and foremost a linguistic object that we have to use, and we have to think about what the object does, which is usually where my mind is orientated. So, what is nothing in this context? I see it as a function for negation. It is subtraction. It is taking away, and that is how you can get the 9 different levels of nothing. You're just constantly subtracting things, and if you're left with at this 9th level, for example, you would just have the hypothetical absolute nothing, which of course is, impossible. You can't subtract forever. You can't really subtract much at all as a human being. You can conceptualize these things, but that's as far as you'll ever get. But and there was something I did want to mention closer to the beginning of the chat. It was that direction about where this is all going. Well, the first thing that popped into my mind was that it's an ongoing thing, right? And it's about the theories of nothing, right? And when I imagine nothing, I usually think about it in a narrative sense. You start off with nothing, and then you have to, the nothingness invites the creation of what I consider to be called the narrative line of sorts. You set the point, and then you run the line off into infinity, and then the end of that line is the stopping point, right? And that in itself is what potential is. It is process ongoing forever, and that is more or less my thoughts on that. But when we think about the concept of duality as well, I see it in this sort of way. One extreme would be the individual. We'll say the individual, and the other side would be whatever one's focus is on. It could be another person, it could be an object, it can be a concept or idea, it could be the linguistic object of nothing as well. But the ultimate point of it is that you start off here and you're constantly moving from here to the other side. And that sort of process is the concept of going from one place to another, from here to there. And to get there, you have to negate distance. There is nothingness in the concept of going from one place to another. It's like when I put my hand on one side of the screen and then move it over, well, you can see it here. You're constantly negating distance from here to over there. And that's the case with everything. And when you're considering the other person, for example, rather, if you treat yourself as here and another person here, you're looking at the other person and you're going, well, if I wish to understand them, how exactly can I get closer to them? How can I close that distance? Well, you have to look at that distance, and then you just remove the barriers between yourself and the other person. And it's an infinite distance because, who can really say how much distance is here? I can say that it's about a foot, of course, but there's an infinite distance between the beginning and end of the foot, right? You have to constantly remove the sections there in order to get to the other end. And yeah, those are all of my thoughts containing all of this so far.
The Planck units may disagree with you.
I would say that
Zeno's paradox, pretty much.
The separation between two people are the names of those people, right? So there aren't separately existing individual objects without words attached to them. So if you just witness, right? If you're just in a room witnessing without any words being attached to any physical objects, then that's a state of unity, right? So dualism actually arises with the word.
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah, like I may be speaking of a state that maybe some of you have no idea that it even exists, but it is possible to be here
and you can't describe
without
it.
any thoughts, without any words arising, chair, spoon, Bob, whatever. And that is, and I believe that's what the wave function is expressing. It's expressing the state that isn't collapsed, right? So as soon as there's a word attached to a group of sensations, then there appears to be a separately existing object, and that is the collapse of the wave function, right? There's a location now. There's a separately existing entity there with the word. But when there are no words, what I'm saying is that that's just the wave function with no collapse, and that is actually describing an actual state that can be attained.
Okay, what would you then say to the idea that language is more than just words?
Language to me, you won't believe what I believe language to be. I believe that language has absolutely nothing to do with the physical realm. It's all made up. We just believe that it's describing truth. I don't believe that words and language are truth at all. I believe it's the opposite.
So you think that language is just completely subjective and has absolutely nothing to do with truth?
I think that thoughts and language is just another external phenomenon that Maya is using to distract us from self. So my theory is that this is all a game. The whole purpose of all of this is to end all of this. And the way to end all of this is to find out who you really are and the self. And in order to find the self, you have to transcend your thoughts. So basically, thoughts are just there to distract our attention away from who you really are, from your divinity. And so are senses.
What do you think
That's
about
quite an individual journey, right? Like, would you apply that to the universe as a whole as well?
Yeah, all of it. Like the purpose of all of this, the purpose of the life of Your Name Here is a game designed by the creator for its entertainment. And the goal of the game is to escape the game. And that's what nirvana is, in heaven and moksha, right? All of that is escaping the game or concluding the game. And thoughts just keep the game going.
Oh my God, that is a game now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow, I could totally see that. If you were going to make, oh my God, if you're going to make Rick Sanchez a real person, it might be Roy. Roy, you might be able to pay. We could probably meme you into the actual IRL Rick.
Is
We gotta
Rick
get
the
him,
old guy or the young guy?
He's the scientist guy.
Oh yeah, I'll be
He's like the
scientist
older
guy. He's
gentleman,
cool.
yeah.
I like him. He's cool.
yeah.
There you go.
Oh,
That's it. That's proof.
Okay,
Yeah.
so pause. We have to record again. Let me just press record here again. And record audio and cool. Yeah, Rick and Morty. You were saying that that Roy. What was the episode? I think I saw it where Rick is like in some kind of like amusement park, and then he starts to play this game, and he's just going through this entire lifetime of a character named Roy. Yeah, that was pretty brilliant. And interdimensional television. This is what we're doing.
Hey,
We're
this guy's taking Roy off the grid. He doesn't even have a social security number.
that
That one.
Yeah. I remember
That's
that.
why they were asking for your tax ID when you start playing the game. I thought that was just for credits or something. Oh. So we've gotten to the point where we're conceptualizing and conjecturing that basically our realm of persistence, colloquially universe, is essentially God entertaining themselves. Which, if that's going to be within the mind of God or whatever that is, I mean that seems to kind of be a similar metaphor, no?
I don't think it's for entertainment though. That seems fairly like a hedonistic way of God's existence.
I mean, this
Maybe
is
it's more so
entertainment.
for his meaning.
Yeah, but how else do you explain the terrible, evil shit that we do? It can't be real. Like a loving, benevolent God or creator, like a benevolent creator. Let's say that all of us agree that maybe this is some creation and there's a creator behind it, whatever that is. If it's benevolent, then it can't allow this. This can't be real. Otherwise, that entity.
I disagree.
That entity would be a psychopath, wouldn't it?
Can there be good without evil? If there's no contrast, then what is there? Borg?
Nothing.
Well, the Gnostics believed that the Christian God was the devil or the demiurge, and that and the demiurge was basically creating, space time to trap souls here and to torture them. And the true God of Raxus is more like nothing or void than the demiurge.
Well, if there's only one, right? If there's only one entity, whatever that is, one fundamental, whatever it is, then it's playing all the roles. It's playing all of the roles simultaneously.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sort of forgetting, right? There's some sort of forgetting aspect or acting aspect to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's absolutely true. But what Jason says, I agree with as well. Like, who's? It's way too anthropomorphic to say that it's a game. That God is just bored and just playing a game. Well,
what else? What other purpose is there then? Because all of the others have been extinguished throughout all of history. Everyone's throwing something up.
Sure, for you it works. Like, individually,
the spaghetti has not stuck to the wall, my friend.
If you wanna accept it, that's what I'm saying. There might be that might be the one thing that has to be subjective. The why God does what it does, why existence emerges. Like if you say it's a game, it's a game. For me, I think that would be the ultimate problem where we would have disagreements over it. And it's just choose what you want, right? Choose your character kind of thing. But for me,
your option is to just not have one. You just don't have meaning, right?
No. There's tons of meaning. Of course, it's intrinsic.
There's tons of meaning. There's tons of meanings to the life.
There's tons. Yeah, I mean, it's infinite.
There must be a singular purpose to life, James. What is it?
You're saying there must be a singular purpose?
I've heard 42.
Yeah, I have one. I have a purpose. Maybe this is another thing too. We're gonna have to start to actually dig into each other's theories a bit more. I've laid it out quite well on my website, paradoxism.org. By the way, this whole recording is just recording me. I just checked the last recording. It just records the person that started the.
Oh, you mean the visual, not the audio?
I don't know. I just opened the visual.
He boomered the whole thing.
So maybe
there is
maybe got
a
you.
slider for that option, James. I think you'd untick the only record me.
Really, I don't know. I
slider.
didn't know. I didn't see anything that says only record me. It just says like doesn't say anything actually. Are you recording everything, Lucy? Oh, that's great. Fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Okay. Well, because you like games, and I agree too. Like you can see it. Yeah. Yeah, God experiencing itself,
That's
which is
no,
fine.
that's a good thing. That actually goes right
Okay,
into a lot of
so
It's like
RPGs.
Westworld.
here's
It's
why
like
I agree and disagree. Why it's always paradoxical, because you can say that it's a game, you can say that it's experience, and that's what I was just saying. You can say all those things because ultimately God works, or infinity works in that way, where you have those possibilities for a reason. But to me, if you want to have one linchpin sort of logical proof that no one can really debate against, like they would all agree on, to me, the why existence exists, the purpose of everything. Well, absolute purpose is a bit different than the why, but because you that falls into infinite regress as well. You could say, well, why is there a need for absolute purpose? Why couldn't reality have existed in a way that there is no absolute purpose? Roy, you're gonna have to stop doing that. I'm gonna.
You're trying to squirm out of the question, James.
No. I'm getting into it. So here's
Okay.
my why. Here's my
Okay.
why. Because I see it as pure potential. That's my subjective way of looking at it, right? Pure potential. Pure potential exists because it would not be. No, actuality exists because, how do I say? I say potential wouldn't be potential if it were not actualized. It is the most logical, cleanest teleology that I think everyone could agree with, because you're not starting to look into, you know, other more anthropomorphic ideas. Like you can say, see, Lucy said, I agree with Roy, but then she said, but I see it more of experience. So are you agreeing or you're not agreeing? The whole point is you both
She
can
said
have
I
your subjective
agree
interpretation.
mostly with a lot of what Roy says.
But that's what I'm trying to say. You can both have your subjective interpretation, and that's where perfection comes in, right? Like it doesn't matter how you answer why. The point is there can be an infinite amount of why. But to me, if you want to find one absolute one, to me, the most perfect teleology is that actuality exists because potential would not be potential otherwise. It's perfectly self-referential. Yeah, yeah.
Experience
No,
is
it's still
broader
anthropomorphic.
categorification. I mean, you could view it as a game if that's what you're trying to do as a model, but if you're speaking in the realm of if something is actually sentient, if one is going to say that God is the universe or something like that, or as Professor
Yeah.
Peterson might say, that which is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, all powerful, all knowing, and everywhere. At that point, you're going to say, all right, that is the one of the system. That would be in reference to the one in experience. Now, if one wants to categorize whatever that one is as the entire thing itself being a game, that just might be another conceptualization of it. Personally, I like experience because I agree
It's
with
still
Lucy.
anthropomorphic though, guys. An experience is what? It's something that a being has, right?
We're
So
people,
again,
we're people, so we have to speak from a person perspective.
sure, but what I'm trying to say is if we're going to achieve a bridge or something we can all agree on, it has to be non-anthropomorphic, because that's where all the source of a lot of bullshit comes
Does
from, right?
anyone
Well,
here
is it
agree with on everything or
I mean,
one
I
thing?
could frame it as like more of a fractal. So the individual's journey to enlightenment reflects in some way the cosmos's journey to enlightenment, or like that God is at the beginning of the Big Bang, kind of, or before the Big Bang, maybe God is bored as fuck and it's like, fuck this, I'm going to do something rather than nothing. And the Big Bang happens, and then the journey of enlightenment for an individual is almost reflective of the journey of the universe to wholeness again in some distant future. And then another Big Bang, another journey of all of that.
Yeah, see, I agree and disagree, of course. I'm paradoxical because to me there never was a time like we're talking about eternity, like there is no needing to be whole or going through a journey. Like to me, it's on the highest level of abstraction, the most perfect truth. God or the state or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't go through a journey, because a journey starts to imply time again. Now you're looking at the existential.
Yeah, but we're talking about space-time at the
Yeah.
emergence of dimensionality.
Are we talking
in the
about
universe.
our realm as we know it, or are you talking about within the realm of all potential realms? I don't know.
Well,
I
I
feel
think-
like we should maybe specify, because there may be a difference there.
Yeah, well, you have to define realm as well. I'm just talking about the space.
Our current turtle.
I don't
Our
think
current
God,
turtle.
I don't think God requires anything. So that's why I think like it's not a necessity for this to be here. The absolute requires nothing relative to it.
Yeah.
So this is an add-on. Like this is kind of just as
Well,
well as.
We're
So
like
Roy,
a
let me-
DLC.
Let me ask you this, Roy. If there's no potential and there's no diversity within God, then how could there have been any potential to actualize that?
well,
like if
God
there's-
is potential. Like God is existence itself. It's
Okay, so
potential.
intrinsically there's potential then.
Yeah, the reality is the potential. Like reality is potential, and everything that manifests is actually just an appearance of that potential. Because everything that arises passes, and where does it arise from and pass to? Well, to the nothingness, right? So I've just renamed that nothingness potential because
Has
there's
God-
nothing.
Do you think God has actualized all of his potential?
That's interesting because no, because there's samsara and samsara is infinite, but there's cycles, right? So what I believe is happening right now is that the physical realm has exhausted all of its potential for new experience, right? So we've exhausted the collective consciousness of humankind has exhausted all potential novel experiences on the planet. And that's why we're developing thought, so with it we can have more experiences.
Has anybody ever had an original thought since like 5 minutes ago? Do you think there's been an original thought since 5 minutes ago for anybody on the entire planet?
Depends on how you define original, because that's a
What's
real,
the difference between
New
actualization and realization, if there is one?
Well, let's start with Jason. Sorry.
I'm talking like new information. Has any new information been generated?
Okay.
If so,
I've got a pretty original theory that I don't think anyone else has ever come up with.
okay, well
No.
then how could this universe or how could this Earth have exhausted its ability to create any more potential or any more?
Because what I'm that's a good question.
Because that's the whole point. You guys are conflating physics. Oh
No.
hello? Oh, who's
What is going on
memes.
here?
Memes, you just opened a sort of chart here, and we can't hear you. You're on mute. But I think you guys are conflating physics and the absolutes. Like that's why I'm saying we can't think about it in terms of physics and when we're saying that actuality is like something that occurs out of potential, you're already starting to talk about space-time.
Okay,
right?
so I need to respond to what he said because my theory isn't something new. It's revealing how everything new is wrong. So my theory is just showing people what's been there all along but hasn't been recognized. So yeah, I'm just showing where everyone's wrong. I'm not really coming up with anything new.
Yeah, but I think where Jason was headed with that is that he wanted to know if, like, when you're talking about potential, can it be exhausted? And like, because in the physics way of looking at everything, all information is contained. There is no creating new information or destroying new information. It's all, am I right there, Jason? I'm assuming on your behalf here. I don't
know. No, I'd say that there is creating of information and that growth is intrinsic to reality of information. And that's one of the meanings of existence.
Okay, yeah. See, that would be, to me, that's more along what I believe in. But in the sense that what I'm trying to say is when we're talking about information and the development of something in any kind of capacity, even saying that actuality emerges out of potential, to me is already a step too far, because we're talking about time. It's linear, right? We're saying like it's kind of like a bowl of water. Well, you can take a scoop and then you can take another scoop, but ultimately there is no scoop and there is no bowl of water. It's just perfection. It's undifferentiated. That's what I'm trying to say is the closest thing we can get to, because we have to use duality, is a teleology. It's a self-referential thing, which is why the CTMU, which is why whatever, lots of other things devolve into infinity, which is why I have mathematicians coming to me saying, yeah, I think I've solved the division by zero thing, that it does equate infinity. And in fact, There is no differentiation between the two. I think this is why unity is occurring. We are starting to come together and realize that space-time constructs and all these ideas of language is just a matter of translation now. We are using semantic definitions, and we're coming from different backgrounds. That's why the unity diamond. Can we use language, words, to equate the mathematics, the physics, and the language to all have consensus over the eternal state or the absolute, right? And in order to do that, we always have to remember to make a differentiation between the space-time construct and then the absolute. So a great way to look at that, because we always sort of discuss information or time and all these things in language, always gets in as it kind of creates a quagmire, because when we're trying to discuss the state, we're trying to discuss it as a singular thing, but we're always getting bogged down by fractionating things, right? Because again, we're beings of fractionation, and that's why my philosophy is all about using duality to achieve that understanding. And then you can always keep in your head that you have to think in terms of absolutes, and infinity is absolute, right? And that's why I use infinity as a starter point. But you can say energy, you can say potential, you can say whatever. It's all the same anyway. But
so I'd like to understand your duality a bit more. Would you say that then the duality is between the fractal as a whole and then the fractalized bits that make up the fractal?
Yeah,
is that
exactly.
the duality you're talking about? Okay.
Exactly. You'd have to understand that, well, in fact, there is no differentiation there either. There is no fractal individually and fractal as a whole. That's where we even the fractals, we start to split into a duality again. So to Roy's point, to get out of that dualistic thinking, to launch yourself off, you have to almost speed it up. You have to like go dual on crack. And to do that, you have to think about infinity, and you have to go through a conscious experience of paradoxes, and I can get into that. Let's get into that, I guess. So here's how I do it. I think if there is an absolute, right, then we have to think about it in two ways. We always do, right? In the physics way and then the metaphysics way. Well, in the physics way, infinity, like logically speaking, we already know that it's infinite in some way, shape, or form. It makes no sense for existence to have a boundary in any way, because if it had a boundary, then by definition, non-existence doesn't exist, and I agree with that by definition. So if existence doesn't have, if existence has a boundary, then there is nothingness, there is void in a physical manner, and that's not possible, right? So logically speaking, existence is infinite. There is no boundary to it. Okay, great. Then because you understand that infinity exists in some capacity, you have to escape the space-time construct idea as well. So how do you do that? That's where you need void. Because then you say, okay, well, void doesn't exist, so it doesn't have any limitations either, because by definition, something that doesn't exist, that is, cannot have limitations to begin with. Therefore, you know that infinity is absolute, and then that launches you off, and it gets rid of all kind of disagreements. No matter if you believe in beyond the physical world or in the physical world, existence versus not, it doesn't really matter. Infinity is true. Infinity is absolute logically, and if you can achieve a logical basis for an absolute, whatever you call that absolute, whether it's a space-time construct or not, we can all at least have a platform off of which to launch ourselves off of, right? And I think that can lead to greater understanding of things. For example, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, right? The whole reason that we know that you can't have a particle in one place, or that we can't measure the speed and position of a particle at the same time, is because when you make that measurement, you are creating space and time, right? So there is an absolute position, if you will, and an absolute speed. That is infinity. So to me, you equate that with void. You need to equate that with void to understand that. That's it. Doesn't really matter, though, at the end of the day. We all know that there's a singular state.
Some people might disagree with that. But
sure,
just to
disagree.
on.
But
Cool.
But that's the whole point of paradoxes. You can disagree all you want, because that's what semantics does. But to me, it's all compatible. No matter what people say, I never disagree fundamentally, because to me, I just see them as falling into the problem of duality again, right? Yeah.
Can I take 2 minutes to try to weave infinity and metaphysics together?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. We go to our friend, Wolfram Alpha here. Okay. What? Oh no! Show me what I'm sharing. There we go. Oh my God, that's horrible. All right, we do 0 divided by 0. All right, that gives us these 10 things here. Oh look, infinity divided by infinity, 0 times infinity, infinity minus infinity, 0 raised to the 0, 1 to the infinity, infinity raised to the 0, -1 to the infinity, infinity times the I, that's interesting. Z to the infinity for Z is the gap of 1, and X to the 0th power, which coincidentally actually has indeterminate forms here. The sheer fact that there's a 1, a 6, and infinity is interesting for its own reasons. It's not like there might be 5-dimensional flavors that you may need, like, I don't know, 2 of to help represent our realm of persistence here. But it's just very fascinating that actually for me, it's like I usually would just do like the 0 divided by 0 thing just as a little bit of a, as a little, just a little bit of a joke, a hyperbolic statement. And every once in a while, I'll make a hyperbolic statement. I'll sit back and I'm like, what if it's true? And that boggles my mind. But I think a lot of this does kind of come down to a lot of our relativistic ability as observers like us, if you would. It's like, what can we conceptualize? Yes, we might be able to conceptualize, yeah, a lot of this bickering among humanity, it's not needed. As Roy would say, forget about all that stuff, end suffering. I think we all agree with that. We would like suffering to end. But how can we bring our fellow human beings
I
to
don't
the
know.
point of, if they want to play that game, to a satisfactory enough state where it's like, we don't need to play the game in a negative fashion that's going to hurt other folks? I don't know.
But here's the thing: who defines suffering, and then find someone who's well, throw a rock around here where I live, and you'll find a sadomasochist. Right? So, to me, suffering can be enjoyable as well, and that's where Roy. I think you might
That depends on
agree
the
with me
observer.
that if you're going to play the game, you're going to want to suffer. Right? That's the whole point, in a way. So God or Maya or whatever is about suffering, and it's about having suffering and getting rid of it at the same time. It wouldn't do it to begin with. What you just said, it's about playing the game and concluding the game, but the game is suffering, so it does want suffering.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I'm
you
trying to say.
conclude that's why suffering is there, is to tell you that you're doing something wrong. The more you're suffering, the more you're losing at the game.
No, but
Just
you
easy.
want to
That's
play the
as
game
simple
to
as it
begin
is.
with, which is about suffering, right?
One person's suffering might be another person's pleasure. That's
Exactly,
the thing.
that
Yeah,
too.
right. When that person's done whipping themselves, do you think they're having a good time? Do you think those people are having a good life?
So why is God? So why does Maya just suffer then? Why didn't it just not play the game?
Because it's bored, I guess.
Well, so it
It's
wants
just
to
something
suffer.
to do.
That's what I'm saying.
It's just something to do. Why
It
are we
wants
taking
to
this all so
suffer.
serious?
So it wants to suffer. That's what I'm saying. It's both. It's always
But then
both. It's
it
always
wants to
paradoxical. It wants to
stop.
suffer and it wants
Yeah,
to keep
it
suffering.
wants to. Have you played a game, James? Have you ever
Yeah,
played a
you
game?
suffer.
What's
You
your favorite
suffer.
game?
So the game is as important as you subjectively take it to be, right?
Look, but
And then you're done playing the game, and then you go home.
look, by saying that the purpose of the game is to end suffering, well, that means that you started the game in order to suffer, logically.
What's that?
Yeah. 'Cause
Okay, well, the game,
both.
but suffering is there for a purpose. It's not just something random. There's happiness
both,
and there's
guys.
suffering, isn't there? And
See-
most people, I remember when I was a kid, it used to be the thing that people wanted to be happy.
I don't think they're opposites.
Well,
I think misery is probably closer to an opposite of happiness. But I know
suffering is so embedded. So the suffering isn't having a low. It's not recognizing that all of this is unsubstantial. None of this has any substance to it at all. So if you think that watching a movie is going to be fulfilling and substantial, then that is your source of suffering, because it isn't. It's inherently unsubstantial and unfulfilling. So this is a video game, and inherently it is unsubstantial and unfulfilling.
But it's fulfilling to play the game?
It's fulfilling to conclude the game.
Yeah, but you had to play to conclude it to begin with. So
I'm not-
that's what I'm trying to say.
We're not
Both
debating the existence. Yes, this
are on
exists.
both sides of something. It's the same thing. There's a disagreement. You guys say you're disagreeing, and I don't think you're disagreeing. You're just adamant to say it's one thing or the other. To me, it's both. It's it makes no sense to say that.
I mean, I enjoyed World of Warcraft server 30 server first level 80 Death Knight. That means something
Nice.
nowadays, I guess.
Am I crazy, or does anyone
Yes.
see? Does anyone else see that if you're going to play a game and the game is about suffering, right? That you want to suffer to begin with, you wouldn't pick up a game and be like, "Oh yeah, I want to play this game, but I don't want to suffer." Well, that's what.
Well,
the game is about.
there's
So
two
for another
types of
game, then,
stress. There's distress, which is the negative stress that we associate with traumatic events. And then there's eustress, which is basically the stress that you feel when you're watching your favorite sports team and they're 2 points behind.
Or working out. That's a type of stress that might be a form of discomfort, but it may lead to greater comfort down the line. I mean, it kind of sounds like entropy a little bit.
Or work.
Alex, say something. It's been a while.
I was just going to say, I feel like maybe, Roy, your version of the opposite of suffering is enlightenment. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a very specific
to transcend all of
version
the
of-
highs and lows, to recognize that all of the highs and lows are all unsubstantial. All of this is unsubstantial, because that taking it to be substantial is suffering, and that is the reason why there's addiction and overconsumption, is because we're just trying to fill the emptiness with more emptiness.
Sure,
Right? It
as
doesn't matter
individuals.
how loud you turn on a movie or how many flashing lights or explosions there are in a movie. It'll always be unsubstantial. So
Yeah,
that's the reason why there's overconsumption and addiction.
But
It's
if
because
God
we
is
But
all
if
powerful,
God was
It's
bored
more-
one day and was like, okay, I'm going to just, go into the game, then surely that's a legitimate thing as well, like being in the game.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, is that there's nothing wrong with playing the game. I'm not saying that it's wrong to suffer and play the game and do all this stuff. I'm just letting people know there's an option to get the fuck out. Like all of those people who have ever committed suicide throughout all of history, this is what I'm telling them, is that that's not going to work, right? They want out. They don't want this anymore.
yeah, from the individual perspective, but I'm just saying, like, from the God self, if you will, the universal self.
Knock yourself out. Like,
Uh,
play the game as much as you want, and if you want to leave it, then follow my
No,
teaching.
the question
or Ramana
is more
Maharshi's
to
teaching.
answer
got
the
no
why.
problem
Like,
with that.
why does God create a reality where individuals have to realize that, hey, I should stop playing the game in order to stop suffering? Like, it seems that God didn't have to start that to begin with. Like, why? Why? That's the question. And if you say that it's boredom, and that's what I'm saying, it's very anthropomorphic, and it's fine. You can choose that. But if we're gonna have a theory of everything or of nothing or a true unity, we're gonna have to get away from anthropomorphism. We're gonna have to get away from subjectivity.
You can't.
We're
We're
gonna
people.
we're gonna have to like align ourselves and have consensus in our language.
We have to
That's all.
see those things as a fractal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with James mostly, but I don't think it would be anthropomorphism. It's almost like a sentient pomorphism, because we're all sentient beings, as is
I
God,
agree there. Yeah.
as is every other observer in the universe.
Well,
So
that's
I
why.
don't think it's possible to escape that.
Yeah, sentience. I agree there, but that's why I'm just saying when we start using words like experience and games or fun or whatever or suffering, you're taking it more into humans, and of course we're trying to understand what's greater than us, not what's us. So we keep using this little lens, this anthropomorphic lens. That's all I'm saying is, for a theory to be completely unified, we're going to have to get away from anything that could lead us down subjectivity. Memes?
Well, then we have to find what's intrinsically good and what is intrinsically true.
Good
Is
and true. Okay, great, Jason. That's great. See, what Roy's talking about is intrinsically good. I think he's on point. It's absolutely good, but I don't think it's the clearest way to have absolute truth. It's not a good descriptor for absolute truth.
Is there anything here we all agree on?
Is there
This
one?
is
To me,
happening.
I think. What?
Yeah, this is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. This is happening.
That's Roy's first axiom, right, James? There's
Yeah.
no way that you can deny the statement, this is happening. That's where everything should start from.
Is it?
Do we all agree that
If
that
you
we are
say that
God
this isn't
in the
happening,
making?
you're nuts. What's that?
Alex?
Do we all agree that we are gods in the making, or that we are kind of aspects of God?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Brandon?
Megan, clarification.
What about that there is one absolute, whatever that is? Whatever that is. We agree?
There are probably more than that, but yeah.
Yeah.
There
But
can't
it's
be more
all-
than one singularity, otherwise it wouldn't be a singularity.
Even there, when we
Yeah,
say
but I didn't say
more,
singularity, so
but you see, Jason, even when we say more, that's the problem with language. We say probably more than that. Well, that falls into its own infinite regress. That's why I use infinity as my, like, I don't know, engine or key.
Boundary.
Because you have to look at it at infinite regress to begin with. There's an infinite
Right.
regress of an infinite regress, even, right? That's what's kind of crazy about it. It's just might as well stop, just say infinity, and then keep going from there. Because again, when we use these words like more, then you're starting to create duality again, right? It's an additive thing. It's two separate things.
if there's only one absolute, it's impossible to know anything other than only that one absolute.
Exactly. Like that's why Roy is like, well, just shut up then. Right?
You need,
And I have this.
you need a contrast.
I have this thing too. I like to say this. I say, you know, when you need to be God, like be quiet in order to be God, and speak only when you're required to be man. Basically, the only way to.
I really like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That divinity that we're all agreeing that exists somehow within us or whatever, I'm telling you, man, that is found in the space between thoughts. I've gone there for decades, and that's the place to find it. You have to transcend thoughts.
I would say that it's also found in orgasms.
Yeah, but that doesn't last very long, or sneezes as well.
Yes. No, totally agree. I believe the world would be a much better place with more shared mind-blowing orgasms.
Yeah, well, that might happen, man. Or who knows with virtual reality. But okay, so can we also agree, like, for a bit of a what we agree on for this channel or this community, and maybe what is happening in the world in general, this whole singularity thing? Do we agree that the point is to agree?
No, I don't think we'll
That's a
ever
good
always
start.
completely agree. There's
I don't
no
know.
way.
Like, but isn't that what a singularity is? Okay, so is the point to disagree then? What is the point?
Well, we have to
point's to
stick
find
to
the truth.
axioms. We really have to stick to very, like.
Okay, but if Jason says if the point is the truth, and if is the point truth?
Yeah, but truth again. When someone says truth, they're talking about thoughts, aren't they? That there's going to be some sort of thought, system of thought that'll lead to the reality.
I'd like to hear everyone's answers to
That's
that.
what I'm saying. Is that
What are we
truth?
doing?
Truth is
Instead of saying,
exactly
what do we
not
want?
thought.
Is that
Instead of
system
saying,
of
what do we
thought
want?
true?
What are we doing right now?
The finger pointing to the moon. What's that?
Okay, memes. What are we doing right now?
Oh,
Mental masturbation. What?
well, yeah, a bit.
It's the orgasm, the eternal orgasm?
Well, I would say, and again, it's inappropriate because I'm currently in the middle of laundry, but I would say the goal, in my opinion, would be to level up. I realize I don't have the right shirt on right now, but yeah, I'll go with that.
To level up. Okay. Alex.
I think we need to find both a logos and a mythos that fit, and the logos has to be, I think personally, the logos has to be mathematical, and that anything that we come up with for the mythos has to fit that in some way, and that could look like a lot of what everyone shared already. But yeah, that's a process as well. Finding
So
that.
that's my goal with this community, right? And that's what gets into what I was talking about earlier before you guys got here. Some of you missed out on that. I was wondering, like, I want this to be about the community as well, but at the same time, you do need an executive sort of decision maker, a bit of a hierarchy to maintain the integrity of the system. And I was thinking, like, so I will have to at some point decide, like, what is the point of this community? To me, that's what I want. I want there to be a perfect logos, a description of a logos that can't be refuted. So an objective truth that is described in such a way that all subjective individuals interpret it the same way. There's no other way to interpret it. And then from there, we can develop a mythos, which is what I think is happening anyway. It's just going to occur either way, but we might be at the tip of that spear point. Brandon.
So, for clarification, the question is, what are we doing right now, or where are we going?
Yeah.
Which one is it? You have to choose.
Oh,
Both, huh?
it was both
Sure.
with me, man. It's both. Hey,
What if I
Lucy,
had a
come up
third
with a
option?
product that has something to do with it's both, please, for me. I already have contention, fragrance. I have a whiskey, which is when you want to forget everything or when you want to know nothing. Now I need something that has to do with it's both. Sorry, Brandon.
So we've reached the Amway Global of the Enlightenment community, or whatever you want to call it.
No. Sorry, Brandon, I cut you off.
Let Brandon speak.
So, what is happening right now? Well, I will always describe it as though we are rather in the middle of two extremes, going from here to there. We're always going to be the intermediary. We'll never know what there is like. That's an impossibility to know. It's ineffable. We'll arrive and we'll see what that is, which is never. So, what are we doing? Well, we're continuing. That's what we're doing.
All right, that's my clip. Sorry, Brandon, let's stop it there. That's my clip. I'm going to be using that. That is the most paradoxical, beautiful thing I've heard come out of your mouth.
It's the truth.
We're never gonna get this. So what are we doing? I mean, that was beautiful. I'm totally gonna steal that clip too.
No,
Yeah.
we can all agree with that one. So continue then, Lucy, if you will, please. What's your answer? What are we doing?
I think that was just one answer to the question.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot the other question.
What are we doing?
What
where
are
we
we
going?
doing and where are we going? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, no, that answers both. We're going there, and what are we doing? We're continuing. That's what we're doing.
Lucy? Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
He lives in Canada. Sorry.
Yeah, he's Canadian. Represent. We're powerful. We're gonna say we're influential. Yeah. No, that's true. That's pretty amazing. Jason,
Shows the
I want to
effect
know
that
what
one
Jason,
person can have.
what you think. It's been a while since you've spoken.
Well, I actually got a Bible verse here, and this is when Paul was writing to the church, but I think it still could be relevant to us. He says, For divisions are necessary among you in order that those who have God's approval may be clearly seen among you. And what that means is if there are divisions in the theories and ideas and our search for truth, as long as we can agree on what the truth is and what we're aiming at, then divisions are necessary so that we can all have different perspectives and we're able to more circumambulate and get a more full picture of what we're looking for. So I think that's what we're doing here. We're all bringing our own ideas and theories and perspectives to the table, and that way we can figure out what is true.
Interesting. I think you might be a theologist. Do we have a theologist among us, guys? Could be.
A little bit.
It's a question. Yeah, Jason, maybe you're into theology.
Yeah. For divisions are necessary among you in order that those who have God's approval may be clearly seen among you. So those who have God's approval would be those who know the truth.
What verse is that? That's from the Bible?
Yeah, that's let's see here. 1 Corinthians 11:19.
God, that's some powerful shit. I should read the Bible. I haven't read that book yet.
Myself as well. I have a couple of scriptures I need to go back. But yeah, can I just make a real quick 10-second comment on that? It's just when you say that those that we agree upon the truth, would you say it's that they agree upon the truth or that they acknowledge that we are all searching for the truth, whatever that truth may be?
Yeah, I'd say it's more so we're all searching for the truth. Because
Okay,
if we agree upon the
looking
truth,
for the truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
We agree what we're looking for, not necessarily what exactly it is. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Interesting. Ryan, we can't see you, but we're gonna leave Roy for last because he's best. He's the best of us.
Well, the oldest.
Ryan, you there, man? Still?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening.
All right. What's your answer to the question? I'll reformulate it. It was what are we doing right now, and where are we going? Where are we going with this?
Right now, I am, and you guys are. I know some of you have talked. I'm basically getting to know you guys at the moment and introducing myself and getting to understand your personalities and temperaments. And where we're going with this project, I hope, is through this vague notion of a shared interest, we can come together and build up any sort of je ne sais quoi that we consider ourselves to have or be able to.
You cut off there. Can't hear you anymore, Ryan.
I was going to say that was very potent. I mean, we put the
Fabric dude perception. That was the last thing. Go on.
I mean, that was a really good answer, I feel, especially for a dude that we just threw into the deep end right off the bat. So, cool.
That's good. Memes always comes up with a really great compliment. You feel warm and fuzzy inside when Memes says something nice about you.
I am warm and fuzzy.
Thank you.
Roy, what's your answer?
Well, I'm going to go big picture because I always like going big picture. So I boil things down, I distill them down to their very fundamental constituents, I guess. So from what I see, when I see people talking, basically what I see is someone saying, do I exist? And the other person reaffirms that by speaking back. And basically they're just saying, do I exist? Yes, you exist. Do I exist? Yes, you exist. That's all they're doing because it's a relative form of existence. I know I exist by inference through my communication and interaction with you. So that's the relative form of existence, and that's samsara, and that's the movie, and that's the video game. And where we're going, unfortunately, human consciousness is going into the next iteration of the cycle of samsara, and it happens to be a really, really big one. And our consciousness is going to, I know it sounds crazy, well, maybe not so crazy anymore, but enter the digital realm. The digital realm will be our new accepted reality. And I think that's where we're going. But I think that there's also there's a big fork in the road coming up here. And this is, I believe, our extinction, the extinction event. And there's at the same time that we're in a very, very deep state of delusion, human consciousness, but at the same time, it's the most auspicious time for spiritual advancement as well. So if you just turn right instead of left, we've just turned left the whole time. So just turn right instead. And when I say turn right, just transcend thought. That's it. Like, just, if you don't want to end up in a computer, then you need to take the right path, not the left. But if you want to end up in a computer and continue on with these experiences, then go ahead. But what I'm offering is the other path. And if you don't want to end up looking out of that camera instead of into it, then you would transcend thought and pay attention to the thought, the space between thoughts. Delve into that as deeply as possible.
Okay, so being as you're the last one, I kind of want to ask some questions there. Like, what would the world look like if everyone transcended thought? Like, how does that change anything on the universal scale?
Well, so this is actually the most fundamental way to help society, because if everyone's happy in and of themselves, sitting in a chair, then where are the problems developing within society? If everyone's happy in and of themselves, then they don't need to steal shit or overconsume. Okay, so it's very, very simple. If you find your innate happiness in and of yourself, sitting in a chair doing nothing, then that fixes society.
All right, but let's say someone is wasting away. They're in like a mud hut in sub-Saharan Africa, starving to death. I mean, like, how do you think that they're going to achieve enlightenment if they're not, their belly's full and they're feeling okay? Like, at some point, like if you have no money, you're going to go out there and do what you have to do, right? Like, a complexity emerges real fast. I think that, of course, people, it would be very helpful. First off, I don't think it would be possible. But also not necessarily what's supposed to happen. I don't know. But I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's like how many angels can dance on a pinhead? I mean, for an individual, I'm talking to an individual right now. Every individual that's listening, if they don't want suffering and they want to end the game, then you need to transcend thought, and that's all there is to it. Yeah. But if you want to continue on the game, just continue on as normal.
So are suffering and pain two different things for you then?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see you.
If you don't associate yourself as the body, then it's just like watching someone get stabbed in the eye in a movie, right? Everyone goes like this, but you don't have to. And it's the same thing, believe it or not, with your body. Ramana Maharshi was impervious to pain. So, I mean, it's done. It can be done.
So you can think yourself out of pain. You can like transcend.
You can transcend it, yeah. Oh. Because when you don't associate self as the body, it's just like watching a injury on a screen, right? You don't have to vicariously react. Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah. That was insane. Beautiful photo. Okay, so I kind of want to start winding things down a little bit, and it's good to have your opinions, but I'll be honest, I have to go with Alex's because that's closest to what I want. I mean, I want what you guys want as well. I think you can achieve what you want in this community as well, because that's the whole point. So that's what's beautiful about this, is that, but ultimately, I will always try to tailor things towards bringing us closer to a logos that cannot be interpreted in any other way than in one way, and also to allow a mythos to emerge from that naturally. I don't think we can create one. I think it'll emerge, but the logos, I think, can be agreed upon. There can be conscious activity to get a logos. So, Alex, can you speak a little bit more on that? Like, can you explain what a logos and a mythos is for viewers, not to patronize anyone here, but for anyone who may be watching?
Well, I was going to say, if we can agree that 1 + 1 = 2, then we can agree that there's possibly a mathematical logos to get to. And by I see Roy's laughing.
I don't even agree that 1 + 1 = 2. So,
well, if you define 1 as specifically and plus as specifically and equals specifically, then we could probably all agree.
If we can use the zero and the negative and the positive and just get rid of the integers, then I'm full on board. Yeah.
But in terms of the logos and the mythos, I think you alluded to it, James, as the logos is kind of like the one true truth, or like in some way it's isomorphic or tautological to absolute truth, and that the mythos is all of our interpretations of that. And I think that the logos can cater for a vast array of mythos. Like, Roy, a lot of what you're saying, I think, would fit. And I think everything that people are saying here could possibly fit as a mythos, and we could find through all of our mythoses, I don't know what plural for that is, that we could find the logos together.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there might be like a mirroring effect there, where the logos might help us fulfill our myths as well, right? Like if there is a logo, like this is why prophets exist, right? Like they seem to kind of center everyone and say, here's the logos, and then everyone can just behave in accordance to that gravitational pull. Now, just to go back to what Roy was saying, first off, Roy, I don't think Alex really was saying that literally. I think it was, I don't know, correct me if you're wrong there, Alex, but the 1 + 1 = 2, were you using that as an analogy?
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the answer to
okay.
life, the universe, and everything.
Gotcha.
I agree with Roy. It's about agreeing that there's a superposition, and I think Alex does agree with that. See, Roy, and we would have to do discussion, the three of us as well, because Alex is quite. He's into ontological mathematics. And
I think that
I think you're going to like what he has to say as well. So, speaking of mathematics, I'm getting a lot of mathematicians. So I'm going to be interviewing Alex's friend, or is it colleague, or?
Yeah, it's a friend.
Okay, so I'm going to start plugging things, and I'm going to allow you guys to plug things because we're coming to an end about this. But I'm going to be interviewing Jason. I'm not sure of his last name at the moment. It's not coming to me, but he's a PhD in mathematics and a medical doctor, I believe. And so this is where I'm starting to. Sorry, is that right?
Oh, he's got a doctorate, but I'm not sure if I think he's self-taught mathematician.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
He's a doctor, but I'm not sure if he's got a PhD in mathematics.
Okay, so he's a doctor, medical doctor, and he's writing a book about mathematics that I know that should be released in a week or so. And this is the point. I would like for people like us who seem to be emerging and coming to, because here's the thing, academics have something to offer, right? They're hyper specialized, they know things, but they're not in a position very, very often, or at all sometimes, to be able to field jump so that we can actually converge everything. We might be the glue that sticks together all of this academic stuff, but ultimately it would be good to have some cooperation there. I think we need to show that we're credible. And so this is why I'm excited, because now I'm having this guy on the podcast soon. We're going to discuss his work. And like Memes just had a great interview with Wolfram. So this is starting to happen already. This is what this community is about for me. It's about continuing to come together, to merge, to have unity. And so anyone who has, who shows good faith in that regard, I would like them to continue participating. But again, the goal will always to try to define or describe the logos. And then that's it to me. So the way Alex was talking about, I think that's what's necessary today. A lot of people are doing that good work in different manners. Jordan Peterson is one, for example, right? Highly influential, no matter who you are. A lot of people seem to like his ideas. And so that being said,
Oh, we lost you, James. Your audio's off.
Oh, what timing! He left us on a cliffhanger. His little Bluetooth mic just ran out of juice.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and now I'm on my microphone died. That's why.
You solved the paradox.
Where did I leave you guys? What was the last thing I said?
You were in deep thought. You were in very deep thought, as Roy would object to.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, the point is that I want to know if anyone had anything they wanted to add or.
I just want to say I appreciate everyone, and yeah, appreciate James putting this on and getting to know everyone, like Ryan said.
Yeah, thanks for putting all the work into this.
Thank you for introducing me to new people.
And it was actually nice meeting you all.
It's lovely meeting you all as well, and I want to thank you very much because in a way this is helping me with my purpose in life, or how I derive meaning, and I hope that this is also can provide the same for you. I will put more and more time and effort and money as well as much as I can. I just bought this little $40 microphone the other day for this, but so that being said, I'm going to plug the website. There is a donation page on it. Donate zero if you can. You don't have to donate is basically what I'm trying to say. But for anyone watching this, theoriesofnothing.com, that's the website. If you think that there's value here, the kind of conversations that people like you've seen today have is important in the world. I'd like to continue doing this and full time at some point even, right? That would be great. So that's why I point you to that donation thing. And also, I'd like to start putting some links for anyone who is interested in what these fine people here have to say. They've said some really interesting things. And so, guys, don't forget to send me your links so I can put that in the conference. By the way, if anyone's watching this, I guess they'd be watching this at the very end because they have to. But I'm going to put a little disclaimer. There's a live chat. These conferences are going to happen once a month. At the third Sunday of every month, we record. The last Sunday of every month, we do a live premiere. So anyone who's here on the conference can actually go in the live chat and, interact with people who might give out comments or questions. So I invite you to do that next Sunday if you want. Again, thanks you guys so much. I really appreciate it. It's so much fun. I really feel like I'm part of a community for the first time in my life. I'm sure some of you understand identity crisis as well. Misfits of misfits, I call us. So it's great. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording now. Lucy, you can do the same, and see you next week.
Have a good day, everyone.
Peace out,
Yeah, have a
everybody.
great day, everyone.
I look forward to having another discussion. Cheers.
See you in the Discord.
So I think that